I want to start today's episode by doing something I don't normally do. That is, we're going to be discussing the context for a game's creation and the surrounding circumstances, even though they do not actually impact the gameplay directly. And for context, and to avoid anyone from thinking I am in any way endorsing this, let me start with this. Do not install this game. Do not support this game. This is not MedaBots. It is in no way, shape, or form associated with the actual MedaBots IP. This is a scam crypto game made by a known, alleged, rip-off artist who got the European trademark, not even a license, the trademark, for the name MedaBots and attempted to capitalize on the situation. My buddy, Gym Leader Ed, has a fantastic video on the topic on his channel, and the link is down below in the description, and that goes more in depth there. Consider today's overview of the situation a I play it so you don't have to kind of situation. I want to give my first impressions, confusions, and an actual review of the game, specifically so you need not ever taint your mobile device with this not MedaBots stank. This is also a reminder that not everything is as it seems when it comes to how games are being presented, and a constant reminder to know what you're getting yourself into, especially when it comes to things like crowdfunding campaigns or pre-ordering a title. Today, we're taking a look at the not MedaBots mobile cash grab, MedaBots Robot Fighting RPG. Greetings everyone, I am the Hipster Snack, and today I take on my best Sherlock Holmes cosplay and attempt to weed out truth from lie, reality from falsehood, crypto and NFC nonsense from sound decision-making, and more, in what is quickly shaping up to be one doozy of a rabbit hole that I stumbled upon. Obligatory, I am not a lawyer nor a financial advisor disclaimer here because everything in this world is CYA now. If I was any of those things, you'd think I would have upgraded my PC by now. Anyway, that said, one day last week, my buddy Cog, who is more up to date with mobile gaming stuff than I, comes to me and says, "Hey, dude, there's a new MedaBots game on mobile." And my first reaction was, wait, is it in English? For context, MedaBots games are still going strong in Japan. Games, toys, all sorts of good stuff. Alas, we only ever got 3 games here in the English-speaking world. MedaBots for GBA, MedaBots AX, and MedaBots Infinity on the GameCube. Bet your bottom metals I would have done a review of that already, but I've sunk a lot of hours into it, and yet I cannot do so due to a persistent crash while trying to record. Anyone who knows the workaround to get Infinity working, please leave a comment below or DM me. Let's talk. Setting that aside, I literally cannot stress this enough. This mobile title I then downloaded and looked at felt off. At first glance, it looked kind of like MedaBots. I mean, the robots looked vaguely MedaBot-ish, even if I didn't recognize any of them on sight. And even typing in MedaBots into the Google Play Store like I did defaults to this game first. But I noticed immediately that things weren't quite right. For instance, the title screen does not look like the MedaBots logo, which has been unchanged since its first debut in the 90s. For reference, I was in middle school when MedaBots first landed, and the show does still hold up to this day. So I kinda know a thing or two about MedaBots is kinda what I'm saying. Shrugging that off and figuring that, hey, maybe this was a spin-off with a darker, sleeker coat of paint, I started the game, awaiting the game to let me pick between the obligatory Rhino Beetle, Stag Beetle, and maybe a Mermaid starter choice. These are almost always the starters in any MedaBots game. Instead I got 3 things? None of which were MedaBots that I recognized in all my extensive MedaBots know-how. And they didn't have series names either. See, for those who may not know, all MedaBots have a 3-letter series code. For example, MetaB is a KBT or Kabuto type, and Rokusho is a KWG or Kuwagata type, and so on. In fact, one of my early hints that maybe this might be legit was an image from one of the gacha banners that looked like it had an SAM series MedaBot on it. More on that in a minute. Ultimately, I picked the Lepix, the rabbit robot. I assumed if it had a rabbit medal, it would be speedy melee type unit, which sounded like a lot of fun, and then I began the game. So I entered the tutorial and am told that instead of picking my meta parts to attack with, I would get a deck of cards representing these parts instead. Each MedaBot gets a deck of 5 cards with teams made up of 3 bots. and 3 energy per turn to spin between however many cards I could play each turn. And this is almost exactly the same combat system as Fate Grand Order, except less balanced, as I would later learn. The bots are made up of 4 parts, as you might expect: legs, 2 arms, and a head, which dictate the cards that would be assembled into the Metabots deck. These cards are about as strong and cost-effective as the rarity of the part that grants them. Yes, this is an unnecessary extra step added on, and no, there's no Metaforce powers to be found, though your 5th card is usually the equal of some super attack for your bot anyway. And yes, this is a gacha game because this is a mobile title and they want your money, so expect the freebies to all be common tier parts with corresponding common tier cards. Stick a pin in that, we'll be back to that here in a minute. Anyway, cards come in attack, defense, and support flavors. No idea why this was even necessary since the parts already did that anyway. The game does pretty quickly, in the single player mode, grant you parts sufficient to get one of each type to form a team of 3. And yes, you heard me correctly, there's only 3 families. Those are human, aerial, and spider. And you are not allowed to have the parts coupled with any parts from any other family, which is un-Metabots-like, to say the least. No tank treads, no sea legs, no laser optic parts, it's all so weird. And that's it. You enter battles, pick cards each turn, and watch the same repetitive animations happen over and over again because every fight lasts entirely too long. Wow, this is not very exciting or interesting, is it? The single-player campaign has some dialogue, but none of it leads to any meaningful world building, and most of it's dull and unhelpful. And the PvP is more of the same, just without the dialogue segments. I actually suffered a few rounds here, and the better part of it involved both parties just spamming shields over and over to reduce incoming damage to 0, so these matches lasted even longer. It all comes off as just unpolished and very uninteresting. And on its own merits, I doubt this could meaningfully carry a game at all. And the big thing that I noticed right around this point when these thoughts were sinking in, I didn't recognize anything. Not the characters and not the bots, not one. And that's another thing. A lot of the time while the game does use terminology commonly associated with the Metabots license, a lot of the time it doesn't. In fact, it calls your team members the robots in almost every situation it can. It's almost like this has nothing to do with Metabots at all. Strange, right? Anyway, another thing I noticed is that customization in this game totally sucks. And on top of that, there are 2 things conspicuously absent from this GUI: the tin pet and the medal. These are huge aspects of how Metabots are customized. This in particular was alarming. The medal is where the meta in Metabots comes from. Not having medals made absolutely no sense to me. Combined with the weird parts I'd never seen before, the weird off-brand dialogue found in the single-player mission mode, the inconsistent terminology, and now, no medals? Something was wrong, and I wasn't going to be able to crack this case alone. Around this point, my suspicions good and established, I reached out to Gym Leader Ed to draw his attention to this game's existence. And what a mess we found. His video about this mess, which went live a few days before this one, uncovered a lot of the problems. This is, in fact, not Metabots at all, as I had already begun to suspect. It was an attempted trademark takeover due to a legal loophole found in Europe. As I said before, I'm no lawyer, let alone a copyright expert, so I won't pretend that I fully understand the how and why of all this. However, different countries have different laws regarding protections of intellectual properties and their trademarks, which are not the same thing, by the by. Watch Ed's video, it goes more into the legal side from sources who seem to know way more than we do, so I'm not really going to try to cover that side of the grounds here. The short version is, the actual makers of Metabots allowed the European trademark on the term to lapse about 10 years ago. Insert joke here about Japan needing to export Metabot stuff, but whatever. Anyway, some crypto bros smelled blood in the water, as it were, and seized upon the opportunity to cash in on a popular franchise. I mean, the sheer audacity of the move deserves a measure of respect. A level of respect immediately stripped away by how absolutely scummy and ethically dubious this all is. So, they then did the next thing that anyone lacking moral qualms would do: monetize the crap out of it in a way that makes it so the house cannot lose. So, let's talk about this free games monetization strategy. So at this point, it's important to know that upon launch, this game, which I shall henceforth begin referring to as MedaNots, because calling it not Metabots takes more of my time, was a play-to-earn game. Basically, if you played, you could earn and gamble their cryptocurrency called Metacoin. I have opinions on this, but that's a video for another day, and I want to stay focused on the game here. The long and short of it is, it's all gone now. Whether for legal reasons or what have you, there's no more crypto to be found in the game, instead leaving us with an in-game currency system that can be earned or purchased in other ways. I want to stop here and clarify a thing. In most mobile games, and even many famous MMO models, there's usually two primary currencies. A free one that you get for playing, and a premium one that's mostly bought with real-world money, but some of the more generous games might give you a pittance here and there. MedaNots has 4 of them. I'm not joking, by the way. First, there's metabytes, which seem to have replaced the crypto directly. Fragments, these purple crystals you earn by playing the single-player campaign. Crystals, which seem to exist purely to be converted to bytes. And key codes, which serve as the gacha currency. Most of these currencies, I honestly cannot find purpose for, other than being transferred into one of the other currencies at greater or lesser returns. Normally, this is used as a common practice to keep the gacha as dishonest as possible and not let the players know what the direct conversion rate is. However, after doing the math, it doesn't seem to be designed with that in mind, for once. So instead, it's just a pointless extra step taken midway in for some reason or another. Having said that, I'm going to go against everything that I firmly believe in, and yes, I'm going to do math. Let's see what it takes to pull on this gacha once they gotcha money. What we see here is the gacha page, and you can do a 16-part pull for 1,500 key codes, and this seems to be some kind of double odds drop rate banner, some kind of event is going on or some sort, as what looks like the normal gacha banner runs at lower odds at just 1,125 key codes per 16-part pull. So since it's our best odds, I'm going to operate under the assumption that the expensive banner is what we're going to be doing. Let's be honest here, it's what the devs want us to do anyway. For simplicity, I'm assuming that all types of parts, left, right arm, legs, and head, the cores, all drop at the same base rate. This means that one 16-part pull should result in the average of 3 or 4 full MedaNots. On its face, that seems quite generous given that a full team is only 3 members. Let's see what the breakdown actually is, though. You cannot purchase key codes directly. You have to purchase them using metabytes, which you can purchase directly. Interestingly enough, the conversion of bits to key codes is 1-to-1, so we'd only need 1,500 metabytes. And if I was stupid enough to drop my real-world dollars on this scam game, getting just enough for one 16-part pull would run us quite a bit more than you might expect. Why? Let's look at some store prices. Mind you, these are all going to be in American dollars for reference. The smallest amount we can get is 128 metabytes for $1.50. Moving up from there, we can get 512 for $6. So, like most games of this type, you tend to get more proportionate to your money based on how much you're putting in. From the first to the second bundle, it's a ratio of 0.83 to 0.85, so it is, even if marginally, a better value. But why they decide to size these packs in accordance to programming values, I have no idea. At 1,024 bytes, that will run you $12, which is very close to what one would need to pull 16 parts one time, but not enough, even if you had elected to use the cheaper banner. This is a common tactic as well, forcing you to buy much more than you actually need, but uh-oh, the pack above that jumps to 4,096 bytes for $48. That's the cost of a full-price brand new game in many cases, and more than 4 times the cost of the pack that's right beneath it. Remember, the gacha costs 1,500 key codes per 16-part pull, so putting down nearly $50 gets you 2.5 spins. And this brings us to the last 2 bundles, 6,144 bytes for $70 and 8,192 bytes for $90. In interest of fairness, this does yield a better bang for your buck, moving the ratio up to 0.91 at the last bundle, but I can't call that impressive. As we just confirmed, the gacha pull cost is relatively high. 8,192 key codes is a mere 5.5 gacha pulls going full strength, and just 7 if you use the regular cheaper banner. If this game wasn't already a complete scam and dishonest ripoff of its fans, these prices would have solidified it as one. Oh, fun fact since I'm on the topic and statistics as a form of math sickens me to my core, by law your gacha is obligated to show its drop rates. Yeah, you can thank Grand Blue Fantasy for that. So, we can take the math above to its next logical step. Common parts drop at 54%, uncommon at 30, rare at 10, epic at 5, and the highest tier, legendary, at just 1%. Now, I had to ask someone much smarter than me to help me with this bit. Thank you, Dr. Root, for entertaining my theory crafting. So to get a full MedaNot of epic parts, not legendary, the second highest at epic, and assuming that this happens in a perfect world with no possibility at all of pulling duplicates, and all other factors being equal, including that all 4 parts have to belong to the same family, you would need to pull on the gacha 160,000 times. Which is convenient because this makes it an easy conversion since the gacha can be pulled in either 1s or 16s. So divide that 160,000 times by 16 to get 10,016 part pulls, each at 1,500 key codes apiece, which is 15 million key codes or 15 million metabytes. The most direct way to do this would be to take advantage of the times 2 newcomer bonus for first-time purchases, and then buy the 8,129 pack of metabytes 1,830 times over, each of those being $90 a pop. For those of you who are struggling to keep up, that comes to a grand total of 164,700 USD. Oh, and you gotta pay tax too. And this can become so much worse if you're trying to get the legendary parts so you can just dominate in PvP. And before anyone asks, yes, you can get higher tier parts, key codes, and even crystals, which break down into 3 metabytes each, completely for free, in the hyper-competitive PvP mode, where those who are already paying money will naturally always have the advantage. By the way, you can check the leaderboards at any time, and as of the writing at the tail end of December, the 3 highest ranked players in the entire game are stuck in the middle ranks of the 5 possible tiers, so I guess they better get to grinding. Or better yet, maybe they should uninstall the game and stop invoking the sunk cost fallacy. To be clear, I don't innately condemn gacha games, necessarily. I have played some fairly decent ones. I have an awful lot of hours in Fate Grand Order to claim that I've never indulged even a little bit. But Fate Go was allowed to use the Fate license in the first place, and that's exactly it. Even for those who are morbidly curious, or those with a love of bootleg merchandise for novelty, are in for a very big L here. It's just a greedy game that tries to steal credibility from the MedaNots license to lure people in, so it can sucker them with a player-hostile environment, where free players are condemned to a purgatorial void of mediocrity and short single-player campaign, and an overall gameplay experience stolen from vastly superior peers. The card system is Fate Grand Order, but worse. The customization is any gacha RPG that has an equipment system. The game's greed is obvious enough in that it has 4 in-game currencies, and any semblance of nuance is shallow and ultimately meaningless because every fight takes a small eternity. It's not deep, it just takes forever to do. All riding on stolen goodwill of something they shouldn't have had access to in the first place. The very name they hide this mediocre and fundamentally unfinished game behind. On its own, it would be a meh game founded on a market that's long since bottomed out, and even with the unwelcomed NFT aspect completely removed, there remains one more element of the game that needs to be removed even still: the game itself. In other words, do not make games like MedaNots' Robot Shell game. Whew. And this has been the Hipster Snack, and man, all I really want in life is more real Metabots. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you guys think of this multi-train pile-up. Hit like if you liked it, subscribe if you want more, come back to see me each and every week, Monday through Friday, for reviews, snack play, snack tech, and much, much more. Thanks for listening to me rant today, and join me next time, and I'll see you there.